Welcome to this edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest. We have a fired-up Mike Jones just ready to come right out of the chute and take a three-length lead here in the Belmont Stakes on the show today. Many things to discuss on the program. We had a game last night, opener of the Stanley Cup Finals, the Edmonton Oilers, as predicted by one Mike Jones here on the program. Edmonton, a slight favorite in the series. I think they became an even stronger favorite as that game went off. In terms of the series overall, I think you had to lay 130 to win 100 on Edmonton in the series in the final proposition bet, and you were getting plus 110 on the Panthers. So that was a little bit of an upgrade there. Very hotly contested game. Panthers might have eased up a little bit, uncharacteristically so, after they got up 3-1. Seemed that way to a lot of people, including guys on the team themselves. And so they end up losing in overtime after just buzzing this Skinner, who I think is very suspect in there for the Edmonton Oilers by comparison to Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky gives up some cheesy goals here and there, but you saw in the overtime period, he made any number of spectacular saves that kept him in the game until the final couple of minutes. And then what I think is kind of a strange penalty to incur. Guy fires the puck. That puck does all kinds of strange things. So it happens to go into the crowd right off his stick, and boom, 2 minutes, and the ball game's over. Mike, how are you, first of all? I know you have a lot of things that you want to address on the program. How are you feeling?
Yep, feeling good. Great. Good day yesterday. Panthers over 2.5 I gave out on Instagram. Got a win by my hair. We're getting only 3 goals. But, yeah, it's a pretty great game last night. Kept me up late. The overtime's fantastic. Nothing like Stanley Cup Finals overtime hockey. And again, like you said, a bad penalty. The puck looked like actually it flipped off a Nosek stick. Like more or less he wasn't trying to – he might have been trying to ice the puck. And then I think it took a bad bounce. And as he went forward, it looked like it flipped up in the air. So I don't even think it was intentional for him to throw it off the boards. I think it was just clear, just a bad bounce that got him. And then, of course, that crazy rule, which is – again, an effective rule where you can't, throw the puck out of play to delay the game, which is, I think, is something that, you've seen happen in sports in some way, shape, or form, where it looks like a guy's doing something to slow something out. They used to be able to ice when the ref couldn't see the puck in the corner. They would always call out a face-off and, freeze the puck. And now it's more or less you got to kick it out and they'll let you play around with it for a few minutes in the corner if they have it's like at least, a long time before they even say that it's not. So it's hockey's changed a little bit, but once again, hockey lives up to expectations. Just a tremendous game. And again, that 2-goal lead, if you're betting live, you get up 3-1. First time there's a 2-goal lead. There's Edmonton sitting on the cage at 5-1. You can go grab them. And so there's always, if you're a real hardcore underdog bettor and want to try something, live betting is probably the way to go to get the crazy odds. And you can tell by what the operators are doing that the spreads are so huge and so crazy that they're really only giving you a chance to bet the underdog. So it's kind of a bet. You're probably not getting the truest of odds of it to happen, but it seems like in these playoffs it's worked.
We've been proponent of this for some time now. Wait on your team is hopelessly out of it. That the lead that the other team has appears to be so insurmountable. Nobody in their right mind that wasn't on the threshold of being Baker acted would go ahead and plunge on the losing the side that was down, and that's the time to unload. And you don't have to hit that often because, like you said, you're getting 5-1 in this spot with something that was not unrealistic to happen, although the momentum had swung clearly in favor of the Florida Panthers, and they are dynamite in those spots. But here's some numbers a friend of mine sent me this morning about I think all games in the playoffs are pivotal. They always talk about a 2-2 game 5. Well, it's a pivotal game 5. Or even if it's even up, it's a pivotal game 3. Every game's pivotal. And the first game, I think, is just as vital as any other game in the series. Because naturally you want to protect the home court or ice or field. And in this case, in the NHL, we know that that's not that huge of an advantage. But it is, if you look at these numbers, Mike Jones, teams that win Game 1 in a best-of-7 Stanley Cup final hold an all-time series record of 65-20. So they're winning at a 76% clip, including a 52-10 and 839 mark when the starting opening game is at home. And they win, like Edmonton did last night. So the Panthers are now playing into a 52-10. The winner of Game 1, the past 4 Stanley Cups, has been the winner of Game 1 as well.
Okay,
So
that's fine
I
as
don't know.
well.
I mean, look, I would never rule out. I was saying this before and all week long that this is one time when we had great interview yesterday with Bill Lindsay, the color
Yeah,
commentator on the radio broadcast, and of course he was the architect of one of the great goals ever scored in Panther history, the game clincher against the Boston Bruins in '96,
right.
when they began this Cinderella run to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Mhm.
And even though they got swept, it feels like they won. So. Yeah, we were talking with Bill. That's on Bleacher Brothers. He gave us a lot of insight
Yeah.
into what was possibly going to happen in the series. But I was saying to him, hey, I don't know of anybody that could definitively look you in the eyeball and say with certainty Edmonton or Florida in that series.
No. Yeah, I mean, I just picked Edmonton on a revenge factor and just the way that things gone and how good Skinner's been performing. Gave up some shaky ones, yeah, yesterday. The first goal to Bennett, the tire was a weird goal where they had to review it, and then we get the power play goal from Marchand right after the review. I think it was the third time in the playoffs the Panthers have scored off a review that doesn't come through, and
What do you think of that rule? Is that too punitive to challenge? Shouldn't you be allowed to challenge at some point?
yeah, I like the rule that actually
Yeah.
prevents the delay of game. That the fact that you give up a power play if you're wrong. I think it's a really good rule, actually.
All right. Okay.
Maybe instead of a timeout, give two technicals to the other team in the NBA. Maybe they won't spin their hands like let's challenge every play.
Yeah.
So I kind of like it. And this last night it looked like they changed the momentum of the game. And you realize I thought there was contact. I was surprised they challenged it, although the announcers on television were saying, "Oh no, he definitely took a fall into the goalie," but it looked like there was contact when I saw it from the open eye, and it's just wow, okay, there we go. And so I thought it was different, good challenge. Panthers are up 2-1, get 3-1, and like you said, you think they're gonna. Wow, these guys, that told me that Florida was going to win this game last night. I'm like, wow.
They never lose under those circumstances.
Yeah, you just felt like after the penalty, I thought that something would happen, but there's something that's happening very interesting. I think the Panthers, not to be a hockey film guy or a scout or a critique or coach, but it seems like they really forced the puck to Draisaitl at weird angles. Like McDavid, I think there was a time where he must have thrown the puck to Draisaitl like 5 or 6 consecutive times on a power play. And Draisaitl either can tee it up if he gets a bouncing puck or whatever, and he scores at these hellacious angles. Like he
Yeah.
just like looks like he's almost right on the red line at the bottom, and all of a sudden the puck's in the net. And I think Bob didn't make the move over there, but you could see it coming. That's where he was going with the
Yes.
puck. And I just think maybe more anticipation. I think they'll probably figure it out as the series goes on. But without Hyman, I think you have to really look toward Draisaitl as being the guy that finishes these. He's a perennial goal scorer, and I think you might want to shade a little bit of your defense toward him more so. I know it's hard to say that, but that's what it looked like to me in the overtime. He had 2 goals last night, and I think he's going to be a factor and the leader for the award. So everybody thinks
Plus
McDavid won it last
750.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Plus
so
750.
I think I think it's going to be a great series. I think, like to your point that you just made, though, I think the Panthers need game 2. I think they could be in big trouble if they lose game 2 up there. So it should be a great game 2. Can't wait.
And regardless of the fact that you have three potentially of the remaining games on your home ice, it's hard to envision Edmonton the way they were playing, losing 4 out of 5 if it gets to a 2-0 situation.
Right.
So, all right, so that was a lot of fun last night. Of course, we're here in South Florida, where we originate the program from, but it doesn't mean that we weren't rooting for some compelling action to take place, and we got all of that in game number 1. Only figures to ratchet up some more in game number 2 with what now looms as even more critical and pivotal type importance when you get to that game. All right, the buckets. I mean, knee-jerk
Wow.
reaction from virtually everybody in the universe. If they're not going ahead and going to take a step up and say Oklahoma City in a sweep, if you ask anybody, you get in an Uber and ask the driver who he likes in the series, you go to the beach and try to hit on a hot chick, and you open up with a line like, "Hey, who do you like in the Oklahoma City, Indiana series?" Everybody's knee-jerk reaction is Oklahoma City in 5. I think that was your prediction also on Monday when we were
Yes.
doing this.
Yeah. Jeff, I just look at this as a big mismatch. Uh, I just think that where Indiana had advantages against the Knicks, they don't get in this spot. Where Towns might have been a defensive liability, and if you see the clips that you watch on these social media outlets, you just see that Towns was the guy back on the whenever Towns was shooting that deep shot and Brunson or somebody might have been below the free throw line, they broke. They got the ball out, whether after a made basket or something, that it looks like this. This is not happening in this series. Hartenstein and Holmgren are going to defend the rim. They have great perimeter defenders. Caruso's going to basically do a good job on somebody who's guarding. And I don't know, even though they're going to penetrate, you don't need to worry about the rim offensively because you have the guys inside. But more importantly, you can guard the perimeter. You don't need to help as much when you have that big guy underneath. And it's so I just see this as a big mismatch. 7-1 favorite. It's the biggest favorite in 20 years. There's got to be a reason for it. The kids today and most of the players are not laying 7-1. They were talking about this on a station I was listening to where it's really the money people that are laying 7-1. It's the guy who's got the big bet, a big account that's going to lay 7,000 to win a dime or 70,000 to win 10 or something. That's where their money's coming in. It's the little guys who are going to bet $20 to win 100 or so the volume play you're going to try to find on Indiana because of the price is so intriguing and you want to root for the underdog. That's history. I think logically looking at it, and I'll say this right here, I think the spread it's low on Oklahoma City. The most dominant team winning more games, over 50 games by 10 or more points. They're laying 9.5 in game one. And my bet is this. If you want to see if Indiana can do this, take it from me. I want to see it happen first. It's not even I'm going to lay 9.5 and say, if I'm wrong, so be it. But I want to see it happen. I'm not going to take my chances as an underdog bettor mostly and say, I think Indiana's going to keep it close and that's it. I'm going the other way for the first time with conviction and saying, okay, I think until I see something else that's not on my eye test, I want Oklahoma City minus 9.5.
When you were talking about somebody laying 70,000 out to win 10,
yeah,
my favorite betting circumstance ever was there was a guy floating around named by the late great Gordon Jones, great handicapper for the LA Herald Examiner and real character, real Damon Runyon type. And he loved it when this guy that was labeled as the Phantom Plunger would show up at Santa Anita. And he would put $50,000 or $100,000 to show on horses in short fields that appeared to be prohibitive. I mean, Secretariat type favorites. All right, and so you're asking yourself, who the hell would do that? I mean, you're only getting 5 cents on the dollar. So if you bet 100,000, you're going to win $5,000. And the problem with it is that you if you lose one time, you have to win the next 19 to get even. Doing this over and over again, just committing financial suicide for what? For the thrill of having 100,000? I mean, what kind of adrenaline rush type of person are you that you're taking 100 dimes? Even if the money seems meaningless, it means more if you're gambling the money.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, who does that? Who's gonna go ahead and take that kind of risk with that amount of money to win what would appear to be an insignificant amount of money to your overall lifestyle and ability to enjoy life? I mean, what's the $10,000 going to do for a guy that had the 70 to put up, and you lose one time? I would love to see. Nothing would make me happier. And I like Oklahoma City as their team. And I like their story this year. The thing about the GM and the way they assemble the team is great. So if they win, I'd be happy to salute them. But because of all of this sentiment from degenerates that there's no chance of Indiana winning, I would love to see them win game one tonight. All right.
Right. Yeah. But it would be good for the game. It would be good for interest, That's the thing.
Yeah.
And if you're going to think that, if people think the crazy thoughts that they have about this, maybe the refs just lean a little bit and the whistles change. And if that happens, anything can happen. And these, there's a lot of crazy comebacks. Remember that Denver came back in game one against OKC with a 9-point lead with 2 minutes to go, 2.5 minutes to go, and lost. The Knicks did the one for 1,400 where 9 points down with 52 seconds to go in game one. The Knicks had 3 20-point comebacks in the second half. It just happens, and there's a mindset of a player when things seem to go south. It's not like the one superstar can guide you through all those, the Magics, the Larry Birds, the Michael Jordan can guide you through those problems. It's like, I go back to this whole thing with that game one against Indiana, which was amazing, where it was 1 in 1,474 that ever happened. The reason why it didn't happen is the stable stars of the older years got things done. They blocked the pressure out and said, we're not going to lose this game. And I just don't know if that exists today. But in this particular case, is not having close games a detriment to OKC? Because here's the big factor to your extended series. They're 0-7 against the number on the road. They're 3-4 in win-loss. So they got beat by 40 by Minnesota in game 3. So don't think it can't happen, that all of a sudden maybe they just win the first two and everybody thinks it's over. And then Indiana does a complete turn, and now we're going back for, with 2-4. So there's plenty of those possibilities. I just think this is just a bad matchup by what I've seen because of the definitive defensive ability of OKC to slow teams down when they want to. And is this a better offensive team? Yes, because they run, but they shoot threes, and they've shot threes at a 40% clip, which has got them through there. But just go back. If Halliburton's shot falls off the rim, or if you really analyze that play, if Bridges actually touches the ball to get Halliburton to back up and shoot that shot. If not, he's going to the rim against Robinson, and who knows if that ball goes in. So to me, I look at it like there's a lot of ifs in this thing that happen to get you here. If Tatum doesn't blow his Achilles, do the Knicks get here? But anyway, I just, to me, it just seems like OKC is just a better team, proven it all year, dominant in their two matchups. I want to see it. But to your point, that's why they play the games.
It'll be a lot of fun to see some kind of challenge administered there by. I mean, who exactly and what exactly is Indiana? Rick Carlisle looks like his head comes out of a turtle shell, and even the way that he dresses kind of enhances that whole image. Halliburton, we can't figure out what he is. Is he an outside shooter? Is he a guy that drives? Is he somebody that's critical to be the scorer every night? We don't know. That the next best guy is Siakam, who is vitally important. Any success they have, we didn't even know he was still in the league. It was Toronto just yesterday. This guy, who knew he was playing for Indiana? Nobody. And then they have a bunch of guys that are contributors that I guess people have seen. Miles Turner, but we don't know who the hell these guys are. And so it'd be interesting to see them being completely overlooked. I mean, almost Balboa-esque. And come in there and give a good account of themselves. I wouldn't be overwhelmingly surprised to see that. And then you have the other issue about the team on the come. I guess both of them are, but Oklahoma City already kind of given the crown by almost everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already been coronated as the champion. It seems like a foregone conclusion, but they haven't done this yet either, and they depend on. A lot of young guys also in SGA and Holmgren, and they do have some veterans on the team. Jalen Williams is another young guy that have they done it? I mean, I just love to see Indiana throw a scare into them, and I'm sure the people that are behind the NBA and the offices there are hoping that's the same. I don't know. Did they dig up Dick Bavetta to call this game so that they can send a message right away and say, this is not going to be the piece of cake everybody's assuming? We'll find out. All right. You had an interesting thing. I wanted to get to this because you were talking about how state taxes may keep Louis the Lipschitz, my bookie, from going out of business.
I just listened to a couple of people talking about fees and how way things are going for the players, that the costs are getting so heavy for the operators that they're going to sit there and push on those costs to the players. So I read where Tennessee is actually calculating parlays a little differently, that they're taxing on deposits and, all this. So you don't necessarily win if you're the operator. I'm just hearing right now that because of some of the props that were hit with Indiana in the last series, that this month or playoff season for the book and circa is going to be a loser. So everybody thinks these guys win all the time. Louis complains, if you know what I mean. He's a chronic complainer about everything over the course of time. So it's not all automatic win. And I think what we're finding out is with the licensing fees, getting up in the 15, 20 million, for these operators, you're limiting yourself to only a certain few, which is going to knock some of the little guys out of the game. And now you got the FanDuels, the DraftKings and Fanatics is making a run. You have all these companies that are trying to get there. Now, what's going to happen when the government decides, oh, this is really great. We're making this and this and this. These guys are making a fortune. Their stock price here. Let's take more from them. And when that happens, it goes back to the player. And I think that's what I'm nervous for the future of all this. The props have been a great gig. These brilliant operators like DraftKings and FanDuel, who started as fantasy operators, now have gone into the were set up, and now all of a sudden, I'm hearing where the local guys are taking huge prop bets. You have to take it. The younger bettor is looking at props.
Sure.
The things we're working on are going to be prop based. If you go to a fantasy type prize picks, they're all props. So to me, you're going to find other things to bet, which makes it better for this. So it's not necessarily the game and action that we've, for our 40 some plus years involved in this, know about what gambling is. But I think there's just all other ways. And I think they're going to have to figure it out or work together with this. Say, we want to keep this, money train going and keep the player interested. How do we do it? And that's what I think the next big steps are for these operators.
All right. Well, I have a solution for all of it. First of all, it's hard to envision the young bettor who, I mean, we were much more person to person engaged when we were kids. You went out on the streets and played all day. You didn't sit there with a phone 1 inch from your face from the time you were 3 years old playing games.
Right.
So to even try and envision some of these young guys interacting with a Louis the Lipschitz or some bookmaker or Vito, who was in collections, not to stereotype anybody, but that happened to be the guy who used to knock on my door and say, "Yeah, you got the money?" Eddie's getting a little nervous about you. Like, well, no, I assure you, I'll have all of his money. Don't worry about it. But I mean, it's hard to picture the modern day kid with his 17-team parlay trying to stave off, payments that unfortunately he's a little bit short on, and hope to buy some time without extending the juice for an extended period of time. And then the easy solution for FanDuel, I don't think it'll be long if this condition persists and continues, maybe to cause some concern about the profitability of these enterprises. You will see Donald Trump for DraftKings, and they'll just offer him a piece.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, all of this legislation that was going to be advantageous to the states goes right out the window, my friend.
The NBA and NFL partnered up with them at some point, so they're, doing some of the advertising. So you have to understand that this is happening.
Yeah.
So you just gotta, when I don't know if this is occurring now. I haven't been to a stadium in a while, but are there kiosks at these stadiums, which is going to happen, where a guy can go up if he doesn't want to make the money, liking it, and go bet a live bet or see something happen. And
how great is
it? So I mean, this is the next step, and it's just, to me, I just think that when you listen to how the taxes are coming at these operators and what they want to grab, where they do it, they're going to throw it down to the customer. So I think you're going to see, you're going to see how they're going to have to, ideas that are going to come across hopefully they can work together. I mean, it's just, it keeps the interest up. I mean, you just sit there and listen, you watch all these, scores. I even heard ESPN is going to pay-per-view. The app's going to be $29.99 a month for, watching game day and all the schedules that come the fall, so if that happens, does that take away from people watching college football or college basketball or something if they do that? I don't know that I want to get in over 30. Probably to keep up with you and knowledge, I probably have to have no choice but to take the app. But man, I tell you.
No, that's not me. When it gets to that point, I'm out. All right. Any plays tonight? You've been hitting baseball pretty solidly. Your theory about the long road trip cashed again on Monday when the Dodgers went down. Their series opener after being on the road for a long period of time. I think it was to the Mets 4-3 or something like that in 10 innings. So the arduous road trip and the return home, and all of a sudden hearing the wife belly aching and the kids crying. And maybe the bookmaker calling if you're Shohei Ohtani, because he doesn't have the interpreter to point to anymore.
Yeah. Good day Monday. How about this just little stat here? We like to come up with some stats for you. Since 2013, the road team was 7-0 on Monday.
Yes.
So we go again. That is my theory right there, that all the teams switch parts, come back after a week long on the road or more.
Did you parlay that? Were you the one?
No, I didn't do that. I wasn't thinking that deep, but that was interesting. And, and then you're seeing Although last night it didn't hit, but I think they had 6 in a row with Oakland going over. That short park in Sacramento is something for a hitter's little paradise. They was used to Colorado for
Yeah.
that, but the way the Rockies hit, you got to be careful betting overs and stuff. Although the Rockies get a rare 3-game sweep on the road, come down here and take on the,
Had
you know,
lost 22 consecutive series,
yeah, and
and then
that
they
was
sweep the lowly Marlins. How
yeah.
pathetic!
Marlins coming off that long road trip, we're laying 2-1. The first thing that came out to me was, man, the Marlins are laying 210 to somebody. Like, wow, how bad
Imagine
is this
who's on
team?
the mound.
But
Koufax, exactly.
but you also read where now everybody was on this bet against Colorado kick out in Vegas, and I heard this guy talking about this as a price maker, saying that the prices are up there so high now that really the Rockies could be a kind of faded side now. That if they get more than 354 to 1, which you never saw unless Pedro Martinez pitched in his prime, you're seeing these numbers come out to be so high. So baseball becomes a very interesting little bet now because of the difference of teams. And the team that I like, and I was on them last year with you, and I'm on them this year with the best record in baseball, was the Tigers, who last night had lost game two of the series, and come back and win 5-4. And they might be a little play on them today. And also the Yankees coming off a shutout, getting their ace going today. We're kind of leaning a little bit toward the Yankees. But again, these are such big number to lays. You're laying 260 is with Fried, and it's just it's hard. You want to find that pricey dog that you really kind of want to find. But baseball's been a little bit of a rough run. The favorites have been pretty good, and so because of the weakness in some of these weaker teams that you're struggling with. So it's
The bottom drought dwellers have
yeah,
been just even subterranean
yeah,
this year, but it figures. Here we are in sunny South Florida, and literally they couldn't have had 300 people in the ballpark
right,
for that second game of the series against the Colorado Rockies. I mean, surprisingly, you would have figured baseball would be a hit here because
yeah.
you can play baseball year round, and I don't know that
You
kids are inclined to do that anymore.
know, let me give you this, and I was a strong proponent of this, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I'll say it. I thought that stadium was put in the absolute wrong place. Everybody thought for Latins and all that down there, but I thought if you had thrown that in Boca or somewhere here where you could have had those Jupiter type, Palm Beach
Sure.
type preseason fan that was selling out. I know the Cardinal fans came in there to Jupiter to come in there all the time and take their trips and come out here to watch their team. But I think if you had that whole base to go, I know that families we have here in Boca are looking for take their kids out to an event, something different. I think it's just the parking's tough getting all the way down there. But I think the money's here a little bit more. I just always thought that Broward County Stadium, Northern Broward, somewhere maybe where the Panther Stadium is, something up here would have been a little bit better draw. But I guess
There weren't enough corrupt politicians.
yeah, that's right. The
I mean, not
support
that
was
there
down
weren't
high.
any, but I mean, the way that they swindled that deal and forced it down the throats of the taxpayers
Yeah,
of that particular community. Look, nobody really wanted to go ahead and offer the land up.
right.
Uh, they were lucky to get anything because you would have thought they would have been better off moving out of town. I remember when the owner was Jeffrey Loria, despised a seemingly criminal element, and I don't want to accuse him of being a criminal, but I mean, this was a guy that I think he was selling Dayglow Jesus paintings under the bridge of one of the highways, and the next thing you know, he owns a baseball team outright, which he then profited by to the tune of $1 billion, I believe,
Incredible.
when he sold it years later with this totally publicly financed stadium that was erected in spite of the fact that there seemed to be little or no interest in the team whatsoever.
Yeah,
So, and it's not the first time. I mean, it's not unique to Miami, which in many ways could be considered a third world republic. But by the same, especially when it comes to the politics. But I remember, a lot of attention being paid to that when I was covering the sports here on a regular basis,
yeah,
and it just nobody else wanted to come through.
yeah.
And
And I think John sold the team because of it, right? John Henry had the team and then
John
went
Henry,
with the
right?
Red
Yeah,
Sox
ended
because
up.
he couldn't get stadium help, and everybody was getting it at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, location wise, a disaster for me. And I would go to some baseball games,
Yep.
regardless of how pathetic the franchise is, just
Hmm.
because I kind of enjoy it, going back to my youth. But yeah, the prospect of driving when a game time is 6:50 in rush
Right.
hour traffic, and getting to a place that there's really only one way to get to.
Right.
Um, real tough. I mean, but the lack of interest. Look, Panther tickets for these playoffs are going to be 5-6 grand to sit in
Yep.
a lower bowl of pop, and you couldn't. I remember not that long ago the guy that was the president of the organization was this Michael Yormark, who went on to I guess he's an agent now for Jay-Z's agency, or he's at the head of it, or was at one time. But he literally was paper in the house. I mean, he was handing people stacks of 50 tickets in the parking lot. It was, and you couldn't get these tickets away. And so if you win, you can at least generate some interest. But if you're going to treat the fans like shit and
Yep.
make no attempt to put a quality product out there, and constantly, scream the same thing, crying. You talked about bookies crying. I've been giving more money to you than I have to my ex-wives. You're
Yeah.
like, I won 2 stinking games, Louis. Lighten
Right.
up. But
Uh,
yeah, I mean, to have the franchise be so pathetic, I
yeah.
think that contributes to it more so
Yeah,
than
it's happening in all sports. Look at the Jaguars going through it up there, trying to put a team together. Rumors they're going to London. I mean, it's hard. You're not winning. People aren't going to come see you, especially here in South Florida. So
yeah,
Panthers will get it, but get it while it's hot because they're the third Stanley Cup, and I'm sure Game 3 is going to be a crazy atmosphere there. So it should be
yeah, it
great.
should be fun, and you probably find a way to wrangle some tickets. Mike, always a pleasure. We'll
Great.
catch you up.
Thank
Big
you.
Gunner podcast coming up on Tuesday.
Yep.
Will be the
Yep.
next delivery of the Big Gunner podcast with Mike Jones, and of course, we'll talk to you on Monday and recap and have some theories about the upcoming week. Recap the weekend as well. All right, see you next time. Thanks so much, Mike, for being with us. For Mike Jones, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll see you next time. The next edition of Bury Your Bookie.